A warm welcome on today's Golden Muse TV show with ChriSOULa Sirigou, the Golden Muse, and a wonderful panel and people very much passionate and dedicated to holistic health and well-being. And of course, there are different areas that could potentially affect your well-being. That could be related to something with your mind, your body, your heart, or your spirit. But on today's show, we're going to dedicate it to stress awareness, because April is the stress awareness month. So a number of you, thank you so much for saying yes, and you turned up and you're here on the show today, because I love this connectivity. I love this collaboration. I love this, people coming together and share your expertise and share even your own story. That you learn from, and that's why you like to help other people to be in a better, joyous and more prosperous living. So I would share just a few questions that I would like personally to open up to the panel, and there will be, towards the end of the show, there's going to be a Q&A where you could ask the questions, and then you could say if there's something that in particular you would like some help with. Okay? Sounds good? Yes? Thumbs up? Fantastic. Brilliant. Okay. So this show is recorded, and I will upload it on my YouTube channel, which you could actually share with your tribe, your social media channels. But also I will create a blog particularly dedicated to the show, and I will include the people participating with your website addresses. So this blog article also will include a video, and then again, that's something that you can share, and you can ask other people to join in later on, next month, if you like, to another Golden Muse TV show. So one of the questions I'm going to ask is, how does worry or stress affect your life? How does it affect our lives? The other one I like to ask is some are actually unhealthy ways people cope with stress. What is some actually ways that we are feeling obliged to respond in that way, because we think that's the only way. It could be, for example, an example could be unhealthy eating. We get stressed and we start having lots of sugary stuff, for example. And the other question I like to ask to all of you here, particularly the panel, is is your opinion in through your own research and your own expertise, some necessary components to managing stress? Okay, some key ingredients or components to managing stress in our lives. So the first one is the how. How does stress affect our lives? The second is, what are some of the unhealthy ways people cope with stress? And what do you do to help them? How do you help them? And the third one is, let's see some key components to managing stress. And then something that all of us will take away. You can actually, some very useful tips, some guidance that we can bring out everyday life. I believe that life can be complicated, but so we need some easy steps and something that we implement in our lives, and we can integrate it with ease and joy. Yeah. So the first question then: how does stress affect our lives? Or how do you feel, personally, from your own experience, how does stress affect your life? Is stress a good thing sometimes, or is it always a bad thing? So that's another question that we could actually ask. Okay, Dean, let me start with you.
Okay, so I think that stress is a misunderstood phenomenon, actually. Mm-hmm. And it gets demonized, and we regard stress as being a bad thing in the modern world. And that's all of the press that we hear. It's all the media coverage is around the negative sides of stress. But actually, we need some stress in our lives, because it's been shown, and there's lots of psychological research around this, that if we don't have stress, actually, it's just as bad for us as having too much stress. So I don't know if you've come across the term eustress, which is spelled EUSTRESS. And that is what psychologists define as like the optimum level of stress, where we perform at our best. And I think most people can recognize times in their lives where actually there's been a moment where the stress has risen and suddenly something clicked in the mind, and you're able to perform at a higher level than when there was no stress, and when you weren't under a degree of pressure to actually produce a report or get something done. And so I think for me, it's about trying to undemonize the idea of stress so that we can understand it better. Stress is a perfectly natural thing that happens within the body. It's the core motivating force within the body. And from an evolutionary perspective, stress was there to keep us safe if bad things were likely to happen to us, and to get us, if we were feeling hungry, the body got into stress, so we went to find food and water. And, if there was a threat, we went to find security and cover. But of course, what happened in the early days was as soon as that threat had disappeared, the stress response disappeared. And so the body was able to balance itself and recover. Nowadays, what happens, the threat is generally created in our own minds. So what happens is it doesn't disappear. We create the stress through the stories we tell ourselves, through the way in which we perceive the world. If we perceive the world as being a hard, difficult, competitive place, our mind creates stress, and it never goes away because we never get to that point where our mind stops thinking about the world in that way. And that's when we get into this spiral. And I know this from my personal experience, which I'd like to share, and that at the age of about 40, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And, I wasn't a drinker, particularly I wasn't a smoker. And what I came to realize some years later, when I was thinking, well, why did this happen to me? I'd been living most of my life under a huge degree of stress and fear and anxiety. And that was a big, big learning moment for me about just how devastating extended periods and unresolved stress can be in the body. So for me, and everything that I teach in the Thinking Revolution is about understanding and awareness and acceptance. And once you can explain what stress is, the mind copes with it a lot better.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Thank you so much. Well, I like that we started off seeing stress as not a negative thing, because it's we can actually see it as existing in our lives and how we can use it to our advantage.
Absolutely.
Yes. And we've got a number of you here that actually you have work. You bring NLP in your work, neuro-linguistic programming, and you bring the words we use, the thoughts. We create how that have an impact on our system, on our bodies. But also, I would like to bring into our conversation like a spiritual sort of side to it, which is stress actually happen when we are afraid, because we are scared. So fear is a number one way of creating stress in our lives. So the more we become more conscious, what are we scared of, what are we afraid of, and how that disconnects us from our spirit, then that's the huge disconnection between our spirit, our spiritual, our essence, with what we're going to bring out there, with the way we see the world, the way we perceive the world. But also, I would like to bring into conversation now Connie Lee, because I know, Connie, you've got something very, very juicy to share in connection with your work and stress.
Yeah, thank you so much. I want to echo what Dean and ChriSOULa, you were talking about, because I believe that stress is just like any emotion, a vibration. Mm-hmm. And I believe that every emotion that we have is felt in the body in particular hertz, in particular vibrational frequency. So we have things like joy and love and freedom that are very high vibrational emotions. and then very low vibrational emotions like fear and shame and guilt and stress. And I believe that the reason why emotions, for example, are felt in the body at a particular frequency is to teach us, like Dean was saying and you were saying, they're all about awareness. Mm-hmm. Now, what are they trying to teach us? They're trying to teach us where we're out of alignment with who we authentically are. So if we're feeling stressed, like Dean was saying, is what is that thought? What is that perception that we have about ourselves or the situation that is out of alignment with the truth of who we are, but the truth of what life is actually about. Mm-hmm. The truth of that actually there is only love. And when we separate, when we're out of the vortex, when we're out of that connection with who we are, and we're not in that space of love, we feel a disconnect. We feel that we don't belong. And I think that's where the stress comes, is at the very core of a lot of our perceptions. That core stress is that fear of, I'm wrong, I've done something wrong, I'm going to be wrong. Fear is, I'm going to be wrong. Mm-hmm. And I believe that is the learning or the lesson underneath all of it. And stress is just one emotion to teach us where we are or are not in alignment with who we are.
Yes, and it's exactly how more conscious we become, and then not allowing stress to control us, because it is a great way also to use stress as an excuse, that stress is the reason why we are not doing this X, Y, Z. So I would leave that for later on if we've got time, because it's a great excuse, isn't it, to say, I haven't got time to do this. It's too much going on in my life. So let me move to Emma. Okay, there you are, Emma.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to kind of piggyback on the emotion part from a Chinese medicine point of view. Or some of our organs actually hold emotions. Mm-hmm. So, for example, anger weakens the liver. Mm-hmm. And therefore, if you get angry, you might get really hot. You might start to get headaches. Grief actually sits in our lungs, and therefore sometimes when we're grieving we might end up with a cough or a cold or something like that. Worry, we were talking about worry on the previous call, that actually weakens the spleen, which the spleen is the transporter and transforms everything in our body. And therefore if you're worrying, the spleen then starts to shut down and backs up a little bit. And then stress really weakens our heart and our brain at the same time. And therefore the emotions in Chinese medicine, and certainly from an acupuncture point of view, we would use points to actually not just help with the symptoms, but the causable factor all comes from the mind and from every single emotion in our bodies. So everything has a domino effect really in Chinese medicine. Like I say, in acupuncture terms, we would use some of those points in yin and yang terms. For example, if you were angry, we would use a liver point on the liver meridian that would cool the liver blood and therefore reduce the anger and the emotion.
Well, I like how we all bring our own perspective, and I love the connection with the physiology of our bodies. How each organ is there to perform, and then if there's an imbalance, then it will affect the other organ in our system, and that's how disease happens, I guess. And I really welcome, I really embrace the Eastern philosophy. So thank you, Emma, for that. But so, is there anything else you like to mention and to share in terms of how actually worry affects our lives? Is there anything else that you like to mention? And I would like to also hear from Karen, because Karen is working with stressed parents. So that the show today, and I'll come to you, Sheila, in a moment. The show today is dedicated to all of you life explorers, as I like to call us all, And then that's equally for, business entrepreneurs, like some of us are here, to parents and even retired people that, they've got too much time in their heads and they don't know, they get stressed about it too. So let me come to you, Karen, because from your own perspective and what is it that actually, how does stress affect us?
Well, interestingly, I like what Dean said. The stress that was there years ago was the saber-toothed tiger, and it was a massive threat, and then it was gone. And now we're living in a completely different time of what we consider stress to be, and we create lots of it ourselves. Parents say they are stressed out with the children, and of course, a lot of the time it comes down to they aren't organised, they've not planned things, they're not calm, they're not present, they're just not being very aligned or in flow. And like Emma said, when we're all aligned, when head, heart and hara are all in flow, we're in a much better place. All emotions are energy in motion going through this body. Mm-hmm. And so this energy, because I work with EAM, the Energy Alignment Method, and I've actually trained with Yvette Taylor, and a lot of it comes from the Chinese medicines. There's only 30 of us trained in the world at the moment to use it, and it's getting ourselves aligned by releasing the energy of what we are thinking. Because when they say I'm stressed out, and then they say to me, because I feel like this, or they don't listen to me, or I think that, it's about how does that make you feel? Mm-hmm. And when we identify where they feel it in the body, or how it even shows up to them, we sometimes see it as a colour or a shape, we let it go. We literally let that go. And it always astounds me, and I love it, the way that the body then feels different, because we've let this thing go, this thought, this belief, this pattern that we've been running over and over again. We let it go, we release it. And then we can start to import those different thoughts, beliefs and feelings in our body. And it is incredible. I do say to parents a lot, when you say you're stressed, please just look at the word backwards. It spells desserts. It's a sweet thing. It's brought something to your awareness. Now we can do something about it. Of course we need, like Dean says, that little bit to urge us on to do those things to keep us safe. Parents just are living in a world where not only them, but the kids are stressed, with all that's going on. So I do like working with the children as well, using this particular method.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Okay. So we did mention about eating as a way of releasing stress, or we think we release stress by having some extra food or extra drinks, or it could be alcoholic drinks, or things that in a way that they're not good for us. We're not opting in for good things, so just to balance off, releasing stress. So what are some other ways that we are keen to go for when we are feeling stress? Who would like to go next? Or shall I come to you? I would like to give to somebody who hasn't spoken anything yet, who hasn't said anything yet. No? Okay, Dean? Oh, Elaine would like to, okay. I'm clicking on okay, there you are. Okay. Hello, Elaine.
Hello everybody. I think one of the things that very many people, both children and parents, suffer with when they're feeling stressed is lack of sleep. And sleep deprivation then becomes a cyclical thing that we can't function well in the day because we're tired, and then we're tired and then we're thinking we're not going to sleep, and then of course we're telling ourselves not to sleep, so we don't sleep. And that then becomes everything in life is too much. And that's certainly happened to me as a new mum many years ago. So I realise now that for me personally, and for many people, lack of sleep, be your whole immune system, your whole survival system, your whole being can become very stressed, and therefore you're more likely to feel stressed. So for me then, and I know others also have said that they're not sleeping. So as you've just said, the alcohol comes in. I'll have a glass of wine. I can't sleep without that glass of wine, or I have to have this sugary drink or whatever it is, other drugs. And people then feel worse because they're not sleeping and they're worrying about not sleeping. So I think one of the key things for anyone feeling stressed at any time, one of the other speakers mentioned about grief and bereavement, that's another time where people really suffer with their sleep. And I think it's about helping people learn ways to relax, learn ways to sleep better, and even that change of mindset that thinks, okay, I'm in bed, I'm awake, but remind ourselves that actually all our body organs are in the right place by resting, and enjoy resting rather than worrying. So for me, certainly helping people with sleep, and it could be things like, I know there's a lady called the Cheshire Baby Whisperer who does some great things to help new babies to sleep, and I think a lot of her techniques apply to us as adults because it's all about the senses. So making sure your room smells nice, looks nice, feels nice, all the things like that. So for me, I think it's about sleep maximization, sleep and rest to ease stress very much.
And I will add to that, thank you, Elaine, I will add to that when we get in stress, one of the most important things that keeps us alive is actually is going down on the pile. Very, very, we don't even think about it, which is, breathing. And we stop really breathing. And that's, for me, that's the number one. And it's so easy just to start connecting more with your breath, and then take a really deep breath that's actually coming out of your belly. And then that's connecting with and releasing all the tension. And then, I always do it because I think I feel the energy in my body totally, all my muscles, if I feel a bit stiffened up, and then I feel really chilled and relaxed after that. And then we could do that and then time during the day. And does it cost anything? It's so easy to become more aware of things. That's why it is about stress awareness, is what we can do in everyday life, every moment, to bring that, joy and that stillness back in our system. And it doesn't have to be something huge and complicated. It depends, of course, what you're going through and what sort of situation you're going through in your life. That you may need to ask for more support, for more guidance, and then you need to, follow a particular therapy. And yes, of course, but breathing and sleep and diet in the sense, nutrition is really important. But the other bit that we already touched on is the way we think in our thoughts, how the worrying thoughts, I was talking before in my mentoring group, the what if thoughts. What if this goes wrong? What if this, this person doesn't turn up? What if this, what if that? And I find that in these scenarios, when these thoughts naturally turn up, that's something that our brain is very good at. What we can do is actually really become conscious, how can it happen? Is it really going to happen? And when it's going to happen? It's going to happen now? It's going to happen in a year? In 12 years? Well, and then affirmations are really, really helpful. By saying, if it happens, then I'll sort it out. I'll be okay. So in a way, really affirming that things will be okay for you, rather than allowing the negative thought coming and playing up with you. And I do also agree with what we talk about senses, become more aware of, the connect with our senses, and essential oils are really important. And I will come to Sheila to talk about, because Sheila works with flower essences. And then the actual, colors. I'm a color psychologist, a color therapist. I work with color. And Karen was mentioning that, we connect with colors and images in our system, in our bodies. And the color that helps with detoxing and talking about anger and emotional grief is the color olive. Is a beauty. The olive color really helps combined with red. It helps with detoxing or releasing negativity, if you like, from your system. And that's the olive. Since we talk about color, that's the olive I'm talking about. And then again, we're working with essential oils, and essential oils to do their own thing, their own, working in a very subtle ways, but powerful ways too. So where are we then? Sheila, shall I come to you? And then if you'd like to share something. Okay, here we go.
Well, good evening, everyone. I would like to say, actually, I can't really disagree with anything anybody has said so far. But what I do in particular with my work, I mean, I was a body worker for 20 years and an energy healer, but now I do stress management consulting. And what I have found during my stint working formally as a psychotherapist is that you can talk to somebody for 50 million years, but if they don't do something with their body, forget it. It's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. There won't be a shift because you have to peel the onion, as I call it. Peeling away little by little, gently, the things that have grown over our souls that distort it. And just like you wouldn't dive into the middle of an onion because you'd ruin the onion, you would ruin a person's soul if you don't do it gently. So my work is a mixture of using the senses, getting people to connect with their bodies, but also to gently be able to step back from themselves and examine their thoughts and be more mindful. And that's where the flower essences and subtle aromatherapy, using oils at very low concentrations, which the limbic system will pick up, but you won't necessarily smell as such. I mean, it'll be very subtle, very easy, and almost undetectable in some cases. But I just found that the way I was trained in psychotherapy was to not only to look at the talking aspect and sharing a story and understanding that story, but also to be able to do something physical that would allow sorry, I said my screen is showing some crazy stuff here. Excuse me. That will give them something physical to do to make that link between the emotions and something physical, in that they're taking essences, so that the bottles last about 21 days, and anything we do for at least 3 weeks becomes a habit. So the essences act as a tuning fork. When we're doing this emotionally, the essence shows a true note that brings us back into balance again. And it's fantastic. With children and babies and animals, it works like that. I mean, literally in seconds. Adults, it's what is it? Why is it? How is it? Where is it? So the mind gets in the way. It still works, but it takes longer. So for me, when I see people manifesting problems like sleep disturbances, I work particularly with dreams. I mean, that's my particular talent. I help people to interpret their dreams, or teach them to interpret their dreams. That stress can form in sleep disturbances, certainly digestive disturbances, which you've touched on. It touches every aspect of our lives. I mean, relationships, primarily our relationship with ourselves. But people are so used to skimming along the surface. I call it the Facebook phenomenon, where everybody skims along the surface, including skimming along the surface of their own feelings. They don't know what they feel. Or they pick up on the most obvious thing like anger or frustration, but they're not really sitting with themselves and understanding what the etiology, if you will, of all of that is. And that's why I like working with essences.
And what I found also, and I hope that, you know, we might, maybe somebody else would like to add to that, is like when we are not connected with our emotions, as you know, we don't know exactly what our emotions are like, then basically we are suppressing them. And Elaine was talking about lack of sleep or whatever other issues that we may have, and then that could end up having some sort of depression as well, because that's another way of you know, how stress can, or worry or anxiety can affect us and affect on our health. So thank you, Sheila. Thank you for sharing that. I'd just like to see where we are time wise, because I also like to allow a little bit of a Q&A at the end, and I like to also give you all the possibility to say something if you want to. You don't have to, but definitely I like to talk about positive psychology, and I like to bring Denise in our conversation, and Galina, and also what you could actually bring into the antidote to stress. Probably it could be more like gratitude for me, you know, being more in the present moment. Probably somebody who would like to say something along these lines, and yes, we'll see then how much time we've got to, and then I'll come back to you, Emma, as well. Okay, right? So Denise, are you here? Are you? Yeah, you're here. That's it.
Hi. Thank you for having me here. So, so positive, listening to everyone. First of all, I'm just blown away by the amazing people that you've pulled together tonight. Like, incredible listening to everyone. I've taken something from what everyone said, and very, very aligned with my own beliefs. And positive psychology is very much about mastering your emotions, and it's about what's right with people. And you just touched on gratitude there. And you know, when we're talking about stress, one of the first points I always turn to is, you know, the expression of gratitude, because even in our darkest moments, we can find things to be grateful about. And when we can find things to be grateful about, we can exist in a negative state and a state of gratitude at the same time. So when we can truly express gratitude, so our darkest moment, if there's somebody there holding our hand, if there's somebody there at the end of the phone, there's somebody there doing a kind deed for us, we can acknowledge that. We can soften the blow. We can reduce the level of stress that we bring onto ourselves. And then I think it was Sheila who was just talking about the stories we tell ourselves, and actually from a positive psychology perspective and an NLP perspective, in terms of reducing stress, I'm very much about a talking therapy, and I'd want to know, you know, what is the story they're telling themselves, and how can we shift that story to something else? Because the story they tell themselves is just a story that's come from their early years, their imprint period. They will have been telling themselves that same story over and over and over again, and then finding the evidence to prove that true. So when we start changing the story, we start changing the outcome. We start changing what's possible for people as well. So I'm a big advocate of changing the story, because you can visibly see people shift their energy when they have permission to think in a different way. And then it's about embedding that as well, because it's all great and good during one session if people feel excited about the possibility of change, but then if they don't reinforce it if they don't turn it into a habit, and that's what I find, where I find most people let themselves down, that they don't actually do something for long enough for it to become a habit, because their old patterns, their old subconscious patterns are always going to be the predominant pattern until they've mastered it. And I think one of the other issues is that people use willpower when they need to use negotiation power. So trying to use willpower over your subconscious is a losing battle, because I think don't eat the cake, don't eat the cake, don't eat the cake, and I'm already eating the cake while I'm thinking don't eat the cake. But if I'm having a negotiation, with my subconscious mind about, well, you know, we can make some different choices here, and I'm making a new choice, and I'd like you to be compliant with me, I'm going to get a different outcome, rather than, you know, using that willpower, because the willpower for me always fails, for most people always fails. So it's about using that negotiation power, because your conscious mind is, you know, very, very small in compared to your subconscious mind, and you physically can't win that win that battle. So you have to practice it enough. And one of the other things about positive psychology in terms of mastering your emotions and mastering your stress levels, and this is from a book that it's in a number of books I read, but particularly one by Darren Hardy called The Compound Effect. It's like when you put daily habits in place, if you've got a routine, you start your day, when you master your morning, you master your day. So not every day is going to be the best day of your life, but if you can master elements of your morning, you can put in some gratitude, you can put in some positive intentions, you can have something positive that you're looking forward to in the day. You're going to be more in control of what's happening instead of you're going to be more intentional about your life rather than life happening to you, and not allowing yourself to be a victim, but it's being conscious that you have, because sorry if I'm going on too much, but you know, your happiness, 50% of your happiness is determined in your early years and from your genetics. 10% of your happiness is circumstantial, and 40% of your happiness is about the choices. It's intentional. It's the things that you do every day. So you've got control over 40% of your happiness. People don't know this. If you're more intentional about it, you can create greater levels of happiness in your life.
Right.
Sorry if I've gone on too much there.
It's good that actually, you know, we've got 40%. So we've got. It's clear that we have got the power, although we think we're totally controlled by stress and other things around surrounding us, and circumstances and things are not under our control. And that's how stress kicks in, and then that's how it can affect us.
So that we say, ChriSOULa, we say. You know, I'm going to be happier when I get that job. I'm going to be happier when I get that house. I'm going to be happier when I get that man, when I get that woman, when I go on that vacation. When I'm going to be happier when, actually, that's just such a small part of your happiness. It's the things that you do. It's the intentions that you set every day that are going to set you up for success. So when people have a routine, so the book, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, he's like the editor of Success Magazine. So he's interviewed all of the most successful people across all different areas of life, whether it's, you know, sports or whether it's in the financial field. And one of the things that people all have in common is that they do a daily routine to set them up for success. And it tends to be a morning-based routine that is a non-negotiable in their life. And when you create, like I always say to my clients, I'm like, you brush your teeth every day. Like when I do a talk, I'll be like, who brushes their teeth every day? Everyone raises their hand. I'm like, great, you need to work on your mind every day. As much as you brush your teeth, you need to be working on your mind as well, because then you build that muscle to create the mastery over your emotions. And it doesn't mean you're not going to have a bad day. It just means that you're going to have more tools to enable you to be more successful when you do have those slippery moments.
Exactly. It's not like you're not going to be, you know, in the way the words I use, not being aligned with who you are, what you want to do. You know, you may get a bit out of track, if you like, but you got the tools to bring you back in alignment and then go back and then you don't allow the little bits, you know, the bits that actually take you off track to stop you from moving forward. Fabulous. Thank you, Denise. Thank you so much. And then, and the other word I use in my coaching when it comes to helping people, you know, really see the shifts and happen in their lives in the whatever way, personal or professional, is consistency. And that's what we're talking about here, isn't it? You know, that's the word I use, and that's, I think, even as a teacher, when I was a teacher teaching young people, I was saying to them, if you want to see results, folks, you've got to keep the word, but it has to be consistently done. And then you can apply that in everything in life, really. Fabulous. Okay. I like to come to you, Galina, because I would like you to put your voice in the circle, in our circle today. So hello.
Thank you. Hello, good evening, everyone. So nice to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. I love what Denise said. This 40%, it's a lot, isn't it? And this is 40%. This is what we can do with our life. We can change our life by using this opportunity to use the control of our thinking. And this is what I teach, how to think. And everybody just made a great contribution. And I want to add one thing that's very, very important. And I want to talk about the calmness. So there is a wonderful book written by James Allen. James Allen was a British psychologist, and the book was written in 1902, 100 years ago. And in this book, James Allen explains how our mind works. So why the things happened in our life. And the last chapter in this book is called Serenity. Mm-hmm. And all my clients, all my students using this chapter. And what do we do with the chapter? We don't just read this. There is actually, you can listen to this chapter. There's on YouTube, you can find, if you just, our listeners put Serenity by James Allen, there are a lot of people who just read this chapter. The even more what we can do when we write this chapter. All my students, my clients, write this chapter. It takes about 30-40 minutes, and it's make huge impact on our life. Mm-hmm. And the first sentence in this chapter starts with, calmness of mind is one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom. Mm-hmm. And this chapter explains a lot. So why we receive more, why we hear more, why we understand more when we are calm. When we are buzzing, we can't hear anything, we can't make right decision. Mm-hmm. But when our mind is calm, then we can see straight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can make a right decision different. And I hope our listeners will find this chapter, at least read it and listen. Mm-hmm. And you're so brave, just write it every day for 30 days. And you will see this change, into your life.
Yes, they do say that it takes, and that's how I use it also, that 21 days. But I guess once you get into that habitual state, you could do it without any real effort. You just want to do it, and it comes really with ease. Yes. Okay. Fabulous, Galina. Well, I will ask you.
One of my clients just announced me. Sorry, can I just add? One of my clients just announced me he did writing for 100 days.
100 days?
Not 30.
Wow.
100 days, yes.
Okay.
Completed the writing, and it's really just changed his life. He become calmer and more effective. Thank you.
I would also ask you, those of you that mention books or books written by authors, or something that you've found a particular affirmation or mantra or some sort of tool, if you could just share it with me so I can include it in the blog article. Including the link of the recording of the video today. So because it would be easy for you if you just type up the name and the title of the book or what you recommended. So I could just copy and paste it and include in the blog article. Okay, sounds good. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. All right, before I open it up to a Q&A, is there something else that you like to add and is really bubbling inside and you really want to say something? Constance, and I'll come to you, Dean, in a moment. 1 second, just
to add that for me personally, I totally relate to what Galina was saying, that calmness is so important in your life. And I've been doing yoga for about 40 years now, and I really think it has helped me, aligned whenever I was in stress with business or whatever was going on in my life. It really helped me so much to both be aware of my body, be present in the moment, calm my mind. And once you've got that tool and you've done it so many years, it becomes part of your life. So I do this every day. I mean, this is for me, I don't even think about it anymore. It's automatically in my system that I do that. And I relate to what ChriSOULa said, that breathing is so important, and that there are so many breathing techniques that help you with this as well. Can even bring more calmness and more. I did a yoga lesson last evening, and I thought, okay, I learned a new tool again. I mean, there is so much available, and if we just look for what's available, and like we're in this group, we learn from other people. There is so much to learn to help us being aligned and connected with spirit and connected with your body and connected with the universe and everything around us. And for me, I mean, it's my personal experience, that brings me the joy that I really need to to bring my life to another level. And I'm so grateful that teachers all over the world teach me how to do that. I mean, it's important.
Well, you see, it is important that through yoga is also the huge gift of, apart from breathing, is also the mindfulness, or the other big part is meditation. That's what you're going to experience. Those of you who are coming on the pre-launch of the Book of Soulful Musings next Thursday, Jason is going to take us on a mindfulness meditation. So it's going to be part. So you're not going to all be there to represent or to give, but also you're going to be there to receive, because we're very good. We teachers and spiritual teachers and holistic well-being educators are very good at giving, and but also now need to allow time to receive. Yes. look after ourselves too, nourish ourselves. So are there any questions, or is there anything that hasn't been covered? What would you say, really, what is, down to the necessary components to managing stress? Is anybody else would like to say anything else around that? Sue? Shall I unmute you, or?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
Really just sort of following on for you what you're saying about meditation, because I think this is, as well as yoga and other things, I think it's a huge way of starting the day, every morning, and just spending, 10 or 15 minutes. So it doesn't have to be an awful long time, but making part of it, as your daily ritual. For me, I've had a long period of time being in a corporate career where, I was almost like stressed all the time, and basically, ended up with having really big health issues. But doing the daily meditation, just 15-20 minutes every day, really sets you up in a calm way, not only calming the mind, but it just sort of calms the whole physiology as well. And but not only that, I think the other thing is spending time out in nature as well, and connecting with nature on a regular basis. And that's also about exercise. But doing some of these things, and again, I think again it's about the consistency, which I agree with other people, is that you have to, you do this, but you're doing it for yourself, for the love of your own self, because you need to take care of yourself. And I think that we've just got so caught up in this life of being so busy, and yet it's actually our mind and our mindset that's creating that need to be busy and making it very difficult to go, actually, no, I'm not going to do this. I don't need to do it. I'm just actually going to take care of myself.
Yeah. Put yourself as be your priority, basically. That's what you're saying, Sue.
Yeah.
But equally, when it comes to stress, when we talked about, on a personal level, it affects yourself, of course, your health and your relationship with others. But also, there's a huge thing around stress and in the workplace, which we don't have time to go really deeply now, because it's a huge thing. I would like to share that this is another area that organizations out there. This is a message coming from, I guess, from all of us here. What can they do to help people stay at work and be happy at work and healthy at work? That's something that's really important, because there's a huge percentage of absenteeism. From I don't know exactly what's the percentages, but it's huge. So Emma, let me just come to you for a second.
Yeah, thank you. I completely concur with the mindfulness and the calmness and things like that. But I've seen an increase just even in the last 12 months of more stress and anxiety coming into my clinic, and therefore having symptoms like headaches or shoulder pain or back pain, the more and more that I see, the more I realise it's because of some of the digital world. We live in a digital society now where everything is bang, bang, answer this, answer that. People expect, you know, an answer to something quite quickly these days, whereas maybe even just a couple of years ago, that if someone sent us an email, we would go, okay, well, I'll deal with that at the end of today, and, you know, and then all of a sudden another email comes along, and I think this new word of digital detox as well is a real powerful thing, and that's what we're talking about really, is the mindfulness, the calmness, the get away from the everyday life of what we live in. And, you know, one of the things in Chinese medicine, we use a protocol called NADA, which is National Acupuncture Detoxification Association points, and they're actually on the ear. And they have become more and more widely used throughout the whole of the world for stress and anxiety, not just in a positive way, but also in a negative way as well. And quite famously recently, the Grenfell acupuncturist set up auricular acupuncture clinics for people who couldn't cope with the stress and anxiety of what they'd seen. And I think just taking that aside, I think that's the bit that we all understand those bits, but I think even as a parent, I sometimes feel stressed because I don't quite know what my child is watching and seeing and doing, and you know, you can put the parental controls on there, but the world today is completely different even to what it was 12 months ago. So that was kind of it's all about stopping and, you know, taking stock of ourselves first and then kind of moving on. And of course I'm going to advocate having acupuncture.
Well, of course you will. Yes, and there's every single therapy. We are blessed that we are, you know, we have abundance of therapies and different ways and modalities and philosophies and tools available. But it's actually what is really working for you. You need to really ask yourself, not because it works with your friend or it works for somebody else that somebody else recommended. It really, does it work for me? You've got to, you know, check in with yourself and see whether that's good for you as a way forward. I believe that we covered a number of things. I know that it is a huge subject. I'm not saying that we covered everything on this show, but I am planning to host another show next month, because May is the mental health awareness month. So we need to talk a bit more going into the mind and the mindset side of it, and how the mindset can affect our love life, our success, our prosperity, and we can really connect a bit more specific within that area. And I'm sure all of you here, we're going to have something wonderful to add on. I'm sure about that. Elaine is going to be talking about mental health next Thursday, and particularly, Elaine, your expertise is in tell us a little bit about what your expertise are and your books, because I don't remember the title of the book. Sorry.
Thank you. My expertise is around the perinatal period, which is the antenatal and postnatal. Having suffered myself very, very badly from eventually puerperal psychosis, a very severe form of postnatal illness, and I was hospitalised, and I ended up having ECT to put me back on the road to recovery. I realised 21 years ago now, very few people talked about it, so I wrote my first book then, which is called Eyes Without Sparkle, to show people how apparently having had it all before I had my baby, nice house, nice husband, teaching job, everything, all the boxes were ticked, to being very close to suicide and coming through it. And when that book came out in 2005, I gave up my teaching job, and I've been doing the conferences and lecture circuit ever since, just to raise awareness of perinatal mental illness. And my second book, called Another Twinkle in the Eye, was published 2 years ago, which is a guide I brought together for any parents and professionals helping them which are considering another baby after they've had a previous mental health problem. And apparently I'm very humbled to be able to say my first book I know has saved lives by offering hope, and my second book is very well helping people now create new life, and I feel very proud of both those things.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Elaine. Thank you. Well, I also like to say to complete today's show that Elaine, Emma Guy, Constance Sharp, Connie Lee Bennett, Sue Ritchie, from those people are actually here on the show today, and Karen Shaw, they're actually going to be in my first book, the Book of Soulful Musings, book 1, because it's going to be series, which is fantastic. And the pre-launch is happening next Thursday, and also the release day is going to be on the 13th of July. And of course, there's going to be another book, and then I will carry on interviewing people. So you're very welcome to have a chat and see whether you would like to come on board and be part in book 2 or book 3. Who knows? We'll see how it can evolve like that. So thank you so much for being on the show. On today's Stress Awareness Show, a very special show dedicated to really demystifying what stress is and how we can learn to release stress. But also for me, the most important is how to become more conscious what how stress has an impact, what impact it can have on you, and put some tools into place, some guidance, have something to help you to go through, because stress, whatever you want to call it, will always be part of our lives. That's the way it is, folks. We are not going to escape from it. That's it. But it is our attitude, it's our perception towards it. It's what do we do to change the way we see ourselves and people and circumstances around us. That's how we can be more allowing the stress to not control us as much, and has an impact on our health as much. Okay, so thank you for joining in. If you like to unmute yourselves to say anything as a goodbye and good night for today. And lots of love to all of you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody. Lovely connecting.
Lovely to have you here.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye. Bye.